The Pentagon has put the military on alert to go to Minneapolis, and I have no idea what that would entail, but it sounds pretty serious. We are well beyond riots having anything to do with George Floyd. Now, of course, people will still tell you that's the reason, but let's be honest. What we're actually seeing is probably more of a lockdown riot. People were pent up, angry, and lost their jobs. What happens when you have mass unemployment? You get riots, but you need that spark. This story right here about the Pentagon putting police on military, it's simple. You get the idea. The bigger story is this. George Floyd protests, 2 Federal Protective Service officers shot, 1 killed. Police are being shot and killed. Protesters are being shot and killed. People are being run over. This is getting just absolutely insane. I believe the official count now is 21 cities experienced rioting, looting, etc. But let's do this. I want to read for you about the Pentagon, and we're just going to go through. I got a bunch of stuff to go through. I got to be honest. I don't even know how to cover this stuff because there's thousands of stories. I'm not even exaggerating. Just like this. Man in a van shoots into a crowd of protesters in Detroit, killing a 19-year-old. Take a look at this. This is where we get serious. That's why we're starting here. The Associated Press says, as unrest spread across dozens of American cities on Friday, the Pentagon took the rare step of ordering the Army to put several active duty U.S. military police units on the ready to deploy to Minneapolis, where the police killing of George Floyd sparked the widespread protests. I do need to point one more thing out. Last night, protesters tried tearing down barricades in front of the White House. A lot of people thought that if the protesters were able to get past the initial barricades, they'd go for the fence of the White House. That's what people were saying. They're trying to breach it. Okay, a bit hyperbolic. I got to be very, very careful on how we explain what happened. But there were barricades in front of the White House, U.S. Secret Service, and the protesters tried tearing them down. Some people said, those barricades aren't to protect the Secret Service. They're to protect the protesters. Because what the Secret Service would do if a mob came for the White House, it wouldn't be pretty. Donald Trump tweeted about it saying he felt safe. And I actually saw someone tweet that you aren't. And this is where things get scary. Listen, you won't know when the boogaloo starts. If you followed my content, you may have heard me talk about something like this before. You won't know. History will look back on this and it will tell you when. But for now, it could have started already. It could have started 10 years ago at Occupy Wall Street, 9 years ago. It could have started 6-7 years ago with Trayvon Martin, with Ferguson, or it could have started last night with a federal officer being shot and killed. It could have started 4 nights ago with the killing of George Floyd. It's hard to know who will determine when all of this started, but it's a catalyst on a powder keg. George Floyd was killed. I mean, we've seen the medical examiner report. I don't want to pretend like we have all of the evidence we would need, or I don't know. I think for me, as far as I'm concerned, the cops knew they weren't supposed to do it. Doctors are posting and explaining what happened. And it seems very much so like they just didn't care. You add that match on top of a several month lockdown and mass unemployment following years of these protests, followed by a decade of radicalization through Facebook. And Facebook knew. Welcome to the boogaloo. People trying to rip the barricades down in front of the White House might not mean all that much. But I do think if the Army gets deployed, then we're starting to see something rather dramatic. I'm not a legal expert. There's something called posse comitatus that the general understanding of it is, because I don't know exactly what it is, but activists like to yell it all the time, is that the Army can't enforce domestic laws or something to that effect. Many of you listening may know better. So if you do, comment and help us out, give us a better understanding. We've had the National Guard come in. Reports came in last night. People were tweeting about this. As the scanner said, the National Guard is ineffective and unable to control things. Many people were tweeting and posting that the National Guard and the police were gone. They'd pulled out. Some said, no, that was a lie. But we all saw the videos of buildings just being torched and destroyed. We saw them smash up the front of CNN, attack Fox News reporters. There's another video going around right now where a man in a FedEx truck is being looted and raided by rioters. And so he drives. For some reason, a man was kneeling in between the tires of a 16-wheeler and he gets dragged for blocks. That man is dead. And a lot of people are screaming, but You gotta understand these stories going back to like the LA riots, where they pulled a man out of his truck and just beat him to death. These people aren't going to just sit around and do nothing. Yesterday, a local reporter, I don't know which city, it may have been in Minneapolis, interviewed, I believe it was a local business owner, who said, if the police and the governors don't do something, the people will. The people will. Boogaloo, whatever you call it, civil war, I don't know. Outright collapse, there's no factions. It's just going to be people defending their homes and property and people destroying homes and property. Call it what you want. The AP says, soldiers from Fort Bragg in North Carolina and Fort Drum in New York have been ordered to be ready to deploy within 4 hours if called, according to 3 people with direct knowledge of the orders. Soldiers in Fort Carson in Colorado and Fort Riley in Kansas have been told to be ready within 24 hours. The people did not want their names used because they were not authorized to discuss the preparations. The get ready orders were sent verbally on Friday after President Donald Trump asked Defense Secretary Mark Esper for military options to help quell the unrest in Minneapolis after protests descended into looting and arson in some parts of the city. Trump made the request on a phone call from the Oval Office on Thursday night that included Esper, National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien, and several others. The president asked Esper for rapid deployment options if the Minneapolis protests continue to spiral out of control, according to one of the people, a senior Pentagon official who was on the call. Quote, when the White House asks for options, someone opens the drawer and pulls them out, so to speak. The person said the military units would be deployed under the Insurrection Act of 1807, which was last used in 1992 during the LA riots that followed the Rodney King trial. If this is where the president is headed response-wise, it would represent a significant escalation and a determination that the various state and local authorities are not up to the task of responding to the growing unrest. They're not. They're not up to the task. I'll show you. Members of the police units were on a 30-minute recall alert early Saturday, meaning they would have to return to their bases inside that time limit in preparation for deployment to Minneapolis inside of 4 hours. Units at Fort Drum are slated to head to Minneapolis first, according to 3 people, including 2 Defense Department officials. Roughly 800 U.S. soldiers would deploy to the city if called. Then they go over the context of what happened. George Floyd protests. 2 Federal Protective Service officers shot, 1 killed in Oakland. After a 3rd consecutive night of protests in Minneapolis and in several other major cities, authorities on Friday arrested former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin. We get this stuff. Okay, so I guess that's just it. They're not going to give us an update. One of the really frustrating things with all this news coverage is that no one's really writing articles. They're just microblogging. So there's your headline. I guess that's what we've seen. We have this story from CNN. Man in a van shoots into a crowd of protesters in Detroit, killing a 19-year-old. I guess that story is self-explanatory too. I want to show you this video. I want to show you how the news is reporting what happened with the FedEx driver, that a man was dragged for blocks, killed. They make it seem like this guy just crashed into him. It's not the case. But I'm going to do something that I don't normally do, but I think is important right now. This website is safeandreadymeals.com. This is a promotional spot. It is a sponsored spot. Safe and Ready Meals is an emergency food supply company. Yeah, I get it. A lot of people like to joke and laugh and mock me because I'm pitching you all emergency food. There's a reason why I don't promote weird vitamin supplements or anything like that. There's a lot of money to be made for some reason, and there's jokes about it. But this is real. Okay, I've got emergency food. And when the pandemic started, I encouraged people to make sure they had their supplies. And I made a joke about it saying, if you went out and bought rice and beans, the worst case scenario is that you're going to have taco night, right? A couple of weeks ago, I said, hey, maybe it's time to have that taco night. Now things are getting better. Well, now we're seeing across the country in 21 cities, cops were shot. One of them died. We've seen cops fleeing police departments. Apparently in New York, they overran the 88th, I guess. So I'll tell you what, man, if now's not the time, I don't know. You do what you want to do, man. You sit here and you make fun of me all day and night. That's fine. But there are a lot of things you got to do to make sure you are prepared, to say the least. No, it doesn't include 30-year supply of beans. It doesn't include a bunker. But maybe it does include a 2-week supply of food or a 4-week supply of food. If you go to safeandreadymeals.com, they're sold out of the 2-week emergency food supplies. They have 4-week supplies available. I believe they have a lot more available. Look, you buy this stuff, you put it in your closet, you forget about it. You can choose to ignore it. That's fine. But I really, really do think it's a smart thing for you to have. I'm doing what I have to do in preparation for just how insane everything has gotten. And let me just tell you, man, if they're telling the military to come in like the LA riots into Minneapolis, but it's happening across the country, this is well beyond the LA riots. The Insurrection Act of 1807. Crazy, man. Safeandreadymeals.com. The link is in the description below. It is a sponsored spot. When you buy from them, I do get, it does support the channel. Easy way to explain it. So I appreciate it if you do. But by all means, post in the comments making fun of me and ignore it. And then when you look out the window, when you see people throwing bricks through the stores in your city and you can't go and buy food the next day, maybe I'll be wrong. But I'm telling you this, man, that Target that got burned to the ground, yeah, people would buy their groceries from there. Well, now it's gone. I'm getting emails from people saying they're fleeing where they live and going to the countryside. There's no food out there by the lake. So what have you done to make sure you're going to be okay? Your friends, your family are going to be okay. I don't know if this is going to, I'll tell you what, your worst case scenario is, because they sold out of the 2-week one, you got a 4-week supply. It's probably going to take a little while to get to you at this point. I'll be honest. I think everybody who went out and bought this 3-4 months ago, when I first pitched it, you're probably very happy you have it now. And the people who didn't, maybe you're considering it. But let's talk about this story. KMOV 4. Man struck killed by FedEx truck following night of protests in downtown St. Louis. My understanding are that these are the same stories. I don't know for sure. Because what we have are a series of social media posts that are hard to confirm. But it does seem to sync up. I want to read you the story, and then I want to show you the truth. They say, detectives are investigating after a man was struck and killed by a FedEx truck overnight in downtown St. Louis following a night of protests. The accident happened near North Broadway in O'Fallon around 3:08 a.m. The man was taken to a hospital where he later died, police said. An accident reconstruction team was called to the scene to investigate. Bystander Jared Arms captured video of the incident. Protesters had blocked off the street with their cars and were seen setting something in the road on fire when the FedEx truck approached. The video captured protesters banging on the FedEx truck, urging the driver to back up. A man who was later seen standing between the truck's 2 trailers was dragged by the semi just moments later. Hundreds of protesters marched in the streets overnight in downtown St. Louis to demand justice for George Floyd. The truck then drove from the ramp to North Broadway and Cass, where people arrived to investigate further. News 4 reached out to FedEx regarding the incident and are waiting to hear back. Well, I'm not gonna play the full videos, but I want to show you these clips. Cassandra Fairbanks tweeted, "They deleted it, but I grabbed it already. Shout out to this FedEx driver who is making sure we get our packages. These people were banging on the trucks." But why was someone kneeling in between 2 of the tires between these trailers? I don't know. I think he was providing a support for people to climb on his back, to enter the trailer, to steal from it. We have this video. I'm going to be very careful, but this one doesn't show anything, I don't believe. We can see in this clip, they're running up to the truck. There's the FedEx truck. I don't know if this kind of semi is called where it's got 2 trailers, but there they are in between, pulling boxes out. And there's someone on their knees. For some reason, I don't know why. You can see them. That's it. I'm going to stop it there. I'm not going to show you the rest. All right. You can find these videos from Cassandra Rules on Twitter if you want to see the rest, but I won't be playing them here. I don't know what we can expect from this moving forward, but a lot of people have already died from this. And this is the crazy question I have. What's it all for? You know, I see a lot of people saying that the riots resulted in an arrest. That's funny, isn't it? That's funny. It's really funny. I'm not going to name these people, but I see these high-profile YouTubers and Twitter personalities saying, y'all are ragging on us about these riots, but now within 24 hours, they went and arrested this guy. All right. You win. I give you that. Why are you still rioting? You won. They arrested him. Charged him with 3rd-degree murder. Because it's not about that. It's not about wanting this. It's an excuse. It's an excuse for these communities to be victimized. Because there are videos going around. There's one really viral clip where it's a group of black men blocking white anti-fascist, Antifa protesters saying, we're not going to let you do this. Because after this is all said and done, we still have to be here. These people are coming from outside these cities. They're coming for opportunity. They're smashing the windows of Louis Vuitton. They're in Chicago. I think it was Chicago. They're smashing windows of a CVS. Why? They're stealing things. That's it, man. We're headed towards every man for themselves, every person for themselves. Let's make this one PC, huh? For today's day and age, I think it'll be funny. What have you done to make sure that when you see the hordes, storming through where you live, that you've taken care of yourself? You don't have to. I don't care. But I'll tell you what happens. You become one of the zombies. Right now, what we're seeing with these FedEx trucks, it's people stealing, what, TVs? Man, I hope my package wasn't in that FedEx box. I got some skateboards coming, right? Who knows what they're taking? You're going to get an email one day and it's going to say, your delivery was canceled because the truck was looted and raided. And all those packages now held up. Maybe even evidence. I don't know. People stole so much. So I hope you're not ordering from FedEx. I mean that half jokingly. But first and foremost, people start stealing objects of material wealth. Eventually, it's going to come down to food. And if you haven't done what you need to do to make sure you protect yourself, then you'll have no choice but to become someone who's doing that. So I hope that's not the case. I hope we don't get there. With the military coming in, potentially, with the National Guard, maybe this stops. You know why I don't think so? What are you going to do? You're going to send the military to Minneapolis? What are you going to do about New York, where they started looting in the East Village? What are you going to do about Los Angeles? What are you going to do about Atlanta? You're going to send the military out to every one of these places? We're going to have the U.S. military occupying our own country? Perhaps, but I'll tell you what, that'll make things worse. And I hate to say I told you so, man, because I predicted this. I really, really did. Maybe the details were wrong, but you could sort of see it coming. And I'll tell you what comes next. Potentially. I can't see the future. I don't know exactly what will happen, but I'll tell you what I think will happen based on the variables placed in front of me. What I said a couple years ago was that when the insurrection gets really bad, the escalation with Antifa, Black Lives Matter protesting and rioting, because I've been covering this stuff for a decade. What I said was, the police eventually have to come out. And it's obvious and predictable what happens next. The protesters are mad at the cops. The cops, clash with the protesters. Riots. The protests become riots at that point. The police fight. The National Guard gets called in. Eventually, the riots aren't stopped by the National Guard, so the military comes in. Now you're going to have military and police occupying cities, and a lot of people for a short time will be happy. The people who say, please don't tread on me, right? They just want to be safe because there's raging hordes outside. Think about what happened with COVID, though. They started telling women they couldn't go to the park. So when these military come in and somebody's in their apartment, let me tell you what it's going to be like. You're going to be in your apartment in downtown Minneapolis. The military is going to get called in. And you're going to say, thank God the military is here to stop everything. You're going to walk outside and there's going to be a guy with a gun who's going to say, I'm sorry, sir or ma'am, you can't come outside. We've got, between the hours of 3 and 4 is shopping hour. And you're going to be like, what do you mean I can't go outside? What do you mean I can't go to the park? And we've already experienced this. This is the point I've been making the entire time. One of the reasons for these riots is because people were locked in their homes for months. What do you think is going to happen now when they do it? When it's even worse now because the riot started. This is the domino effect where it just keeps going. COVID hits. People locked in their houses. They're angry. They want to go out. They can't. They're getting arrested for being in the park. Now even conservatives aren't standing behind these cops for the most part, to varying degrees. Obviously, nobody likes, conservatives are calling out the rioting for sure. But a lot of people are right. The goodwill the police had amongst conservatives has dwindled because of the unconstitutional enforcement. Good cops said they wouldn't do it. There were very few of them. So then you see these George Floyd's killing and people go out and protest. And then surprisingly, very few conservatives, even Sean Hannity was calling out the Minneapolis police. So who is there to argue for the other side? Nobody. So what happens? This results in riots, which results in more enforcement from a law enforcement agency that has very little support across the country or lowering support, which results in the military coming in, which has more support, which results in a harsher lockdown. Curfews ignored. Law and order breaks down. Chris Hrepsky says, every reporter we have in 4 protest areas in Minneapolis right now, all saying there are no police nor National Guard anywhere. Buildings on fire, business actively being looted, 4-lane I-35 South blocked with people and fire. Governor, mayor, chief, what do you think? No, that's the final straw. When they just stop, when they're gone, you'll find yourself sitting at home. You'll be minding your business, maybe eating your last can of beans, and then all of a sudden you'll hear some noises outside. A bunch of angry people are stomping around. They're fighting. They're clashing. We don't know why. This is a video from the White House, but where I said they were trying to push through the barricades. The people running the show are gone. They're protecting themselves. Right? People are asking, where's Donald Trump right now? Because he hasn't been tweeting, which is kind of silly because if he didn't tweet in the first place, people wouldn't be saying that. But when everything goes south, the first thing that happens is the power structures protect themselves before they protect you. The police will be protecting their police department, not your home. And you'll look at things like this. Rioters pull black man out of his car and begin beating him in Dallas. Why? Why? Just some guy in his car? A black man being beaten by other black men? So it's not a racial thing, right? It's meaningless. Completely meaningless. So perhaps there will come a time when an angry group is running through your neighborhood. Maybe you live in a residential area slightly on the outskirts of a big city. Maybe you live in a residential suburb. And maybe large groups of people start looking for stuff. They're going to smash the windows of, if they're going to burn down buildings in low-income housing, why wouldn't they raid a home? I mean, they burned down. It was a construction site, but it was mostly done, I believe, of low-income housing. What's to stop them from coming to your house? Now, we're not there yet. Maybe we don't get there. I don't see why people would start protesting and marching to the suburbs. That doesn't seem to make sense. But it could happen, especially if people are desperate and hungry, and especially if they're attacking each other for unknown reasons. This is not about George Floyd at all. Food riots, maybe? No idea. But I guess we'll only sit and wait and find out. So let me say it one more time for all of you. First and foremost, I mean, with full disclosure, safeandreadymeals.com is a promo spot. And I only shout it out because I really do believe in it. I'm not going to sell you vitamins. I'm not going to sell you anything I wouldn't use myself. I see all these people, you got Vitamax, Extra, Dragon Strength. It's like, nah, whatever, man. You eat food every day. You got a first aid kit? Tell me where it is. A lot of you know. I'm sure a lot of you are like, oh man, where is my first aid kit? That's right. But you do have one. When was the last time you used it? It's funny to me that it takes something like this for people to realize that sometimes you need to eat. You eat every day. You can go a month without eating, but it's not going to be fun. This will last you 1 month. And then I don't know what to tell you, man. So get it or don't. I don't care. You can do it or you're not. But I appreciate it if you want to support the channel and you do get it. And I really do stand by it that I think people should have some kind of emergency provisions. I hope you've also gone and gotten tools you might need. A multi-tool, a Leatherman, I don't know. I'm not saying the world's ending, but I'll tell you what, man, you combine what's going on right now with the pandemic and things sure are weird. Why is it that all these stories, remember these stories where they said protesters came out demanding the country reopen? Days later, COVID, skyrockets. Well, it's been 4 days of riots. Where are these stories? COVID isn't skyrocketing? What's happening? So you mean good, honest people followed the rules, stayed home, and now people are going out and rioting. You play by the rules, and all that's left is destruction of your city. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel, and I'll see you all then.